President Joe Biden's former press secretary is here to explain her decision to leave the Democratic Party. Karine Jean-Pierre was a registered Democrat for 20 years. She served in the Obama and then the Biden administrations. And in 2022, she became the first black and openly LGBTQ person to be named White House press secretary. And she was in that role for years. After Biden left office in January, though, she became a registered independent, criticizing how Democrats failed to rally behind the president before he dropped his re-election bid. In her new book, Independent, it's an inside look at a broken White House outside the party lines. That is the subtitle. And Karine Jean-Pierre joins us now. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Gayle. Thank you, Nate. Thank you for having me.
So when this book landed on my desk and I saw a broken White House in the subtitle, I have to say, I thought you were going to say that try as you might to convince Joe Biden to drop out of the race, because what we were seeing is what you were seeing, and he was struggling, couldn't do it. I thought you were going to say you were angry at that, but mostly...
I did too.
What you said in this book is you're angry at the people who tried to push him out.
Yes, that's correct.
Some Americans are going to say, seriously?
But not just the party that pushed him out, the party as it's behaving today in this moment when we need a Democratic Party to be fighting, to be an opposition party. And that really what ignited the book. Right after the administration, I was just minding my business, right? No longer a public servant, going to the grocery store, going to my kids' school. People would come up to me, and strangers, and they would say, what's going on with the Democratic Party? Why aren't they fighting? We knew what was going to happen after this election. Why are they not prepared? So it is the stakes were really high. So it's connected also to the moment that we are in. I'm telling a story, obviously, my story, and how I started thinking about the Democratic Party and my involvement in it. And then fast forward to today, the disappointment, the disillusionment that millions of people have.
But
and
I want to pick up on what Tony was saying, because I too thought that. And you said, people said, why didn't members of his inner circle speak up about what many believe was the apparent decline of Joe Biden? And you said, you're a member of the inner circle and you never saw the decline. And after that, I wrote, how? Yep. You even write, Karine, that you were on the plane with him going to the debate and you didn't see anything.
Well, when we were on Air Force One going to the debate, you got to remember his campaign people were on the team, his family was on the team. I actually was one of those rare trips that I didn't really see him until after the debate, even though I was on the plane. So really, I want everybody to know that I take this question incredibly seriously. I do. I was his White House press secretary, which means I had a role that saw him practically every day and traveled with him.
And you saw nothing.
For more than 95%. We've always said, we're not going to say, oh, he didn't age. He aged. And he poked fun at it. We always owned up. And with age comes what happens when you get older.
Which is?
But when we talk about the mental acuity, and again, I take this very, very seriously. I never saw anyone who wasn't there. I saw someone who was always engaged. I saw someone who understood policy, pushed us on the policy, and also understood history. And there were times, I'll tell you the story, there were times where he would call me into the Oval Office and I would be like, oh no, because I knew whatever he was going to ask me was going to be direct, was going to be about a story he read, about how we're pushing back, how we're pushing a message forward.
And you write about the people within the party pushing him out. Some would describe those people fighting for a replacement candidate is fighting. But you also describe this current state of the Democratic Party as too timid. What can the Democratic Party do to get out of this timid and even some will say disappointing place?
So timid that you've gotten out of the Democratic Party.
Here's the thing. I actually think that the system is broken. The two-party system is broken, and we need it to be fixed, to be working in order for a democracy. Look, just this past Saturday, millions of people, 7 million people showed up to the street to talk about no kings, right? It was a no king rally, to talk about making sure we're fighting for our democracy.
Right.
And it grew. That was the third one. It grew. And so the power should be in the hands of the people, not in the White House, not with one establishment, more broadly. And so I think as an opposition party, we should see, for example, why aren't there more lawsuits from Democrats? Why are outside groups lining up to do the opposition protests? We should have the Democrats more involved. Why are Democrats not standing in front of a hospital that's about to be shut down because of GOP hikes that is going to cost lives?
Yeah.
Why are they doing press conferences there? We should not. What we're seeing and what I hear from people, not just me, they feel as if the Democratic Party is acting as it is normal times, and they are relinquishing their power.
Will you create a new party? Is that what you're angling for?
No, so I actually talk about this in the book, and it's very nuanced. I'm very much aligned with the values of the Democratic Party, and I understand what it means to have a third-party system and how that can. I talk about the history of third-party candidates in presidential. What I am saying is I want to start a conversation, and I feel like I am now a private citizen, and I have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
And if I could be from the outside pushing and saying, hey, this two-party system isn't working, there are millions of people, not just me, millions of people who are part of the independent party who feel like they're not seen. And younger people are becoming independents by
we would love to see our representatives get along, too, as well.
Yeah, and I talk about that, too, in the book. The partisanship has hurt us.
Karine Jean-Pierre, thank you very much. We're up against the wall here, but the book is a great read for people who are interested in what happened inside that White House. It's called Independent. It goes on sale tomorrow. Thank you very much.
The forces you battled inside the White House, too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Karine Jean-Pierre was a registered Democrat for more than 2 decades, serving the Obama and Biden administrations, and in 2022 becoming the face of the Biden White House as press secretary. Now, Jean-Pierre says after leaving the White House earlier this year, she also left the Democratic Party and is now a registered independent. By the way, a lot of other Americans are doing the very same thing, registering as independents. She opens up about walking away in her new book, Independent, a look inside a broken White House outside the party lines. And Karine Jean-Pierre joins us once again. Thank you for coming back to the 9. We were chatting in the 8.
Thank you.
Kamala Harris called it reckless for Joe Biden to run for re-election. You don't use words like that in here. In fact, you think what was reckless was pushing him out. Can you explain?
Yeah, so I think you have his decision to run. You have to go back to 2023, early, that winter-spring moment coming out of the midterms, which was arguably, it's been stated, one of the most successful midterm elections for a first-term president. And there wasn't a red wave. There was supposed to be a red wave. And a lot of it was because of the successes that came from the Biden administration. And I would say from that time, arguably, you could say he was successful, right? And I just mentioned in his first couple of years, he was the incumbent. He was the only person to have ever beaten Donald Trump in a presidential election. And so all the things lined up. And everyone was saying, you should run, he should run. And so that's what I want to take people back to that time and not be revisionist historians here and really focus on what made him make that decision. And I think for me, fast forwarding to June 2024, when so much was at stake for this country, for our democracy, it just seemed as if doing that to someone also who had more than 50 years of, public servant work and had, again, arguably a very successful, objectively, a very successful presidential run, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why this is the way you would treat somebody when we are just weeks, months ahead of an election season in a really unprecedented time.
Well, to follow up on that, I mean, in your book, you talk a lot about how the Republicans were very in lockstep with President Trump. Do you think it's okay for people to be in lockstep, have unwavering support, even if there are concerns that a lot of people were having?
So I think there are two things here. I think that it is important to have your moral compass just in general as you think about what's going right now in this country, as you think about vulnerable communities who are under attack. It is important to have your moral compass. Joe Biden was not under investigation. Again, he objectively had a successful period as president. And he was the only person to have beaten Donald Trump, has spent 50 years as public servant. It is not the same, right, in the sense of comparing those two people. What was different is how they reacted in that period of time where I think so much was at stake. And it was, I think, a cruel way to treat someone. Again, not under investigation, had a pretty good presidency, and had beaten Donald Trump. was the only person who had
was
beaten
also
Donald Trump.
clearly having problems, right? I mean, lots and lots and lots of people who just watching him on video, let alone meeting him, had reported on that. Have you reflected on why there's this big disconnect between the millions of Americans at home who were watching him and said, I don't know if he's all there, and you saying behind the scenes, wow, he was there?
So a couple of things. We were always honest. You couldn't hide the fact that he was aging, right? And we saw that there were moments where it showed that he was no one is denying that, and he would poke fun at that. And he said it was a horrible debate, terrible debate. He has spoken about it. I have spoken about it at the podium. I think I said this to you at the 8 o'clock hour, to you and the other anchors. And this question, I take it very seriously. When you talk about his mental acuity, we talk about him being all there. He's someone that I saw almost every day, if not every day, and traveled with more than 95% of the time on Marine One, Air Force One. He was someone who would debate with you, engage with you.
What's the disconnect here then? Like, is the country just ageist? Because millions of Americans didn't think he was up to it, but you're saying there was nothing there.
Well, I'm someone.
No problem.
I think the difference is I saw him every day.
Okay.
I did. I saw him every single day and had a first account of the president that I understood and I knew to have cared about this country, understand policy, understand history, and be able to have, again, objectively a very successful couple of years of his first term.
Before we let you go, independent, you've left the party. I'll admit, as an independent myself, I did read a few, of these passages and go, it really feels like you're setting this up as Democrats versus Republicans. Would you ever vote Republican?
No, I would not vote Republican.
So then are you an independent?
Well, no, here's the thing. What I'm trying to highlight is the system is indeed broken. We need a two-party system that's functioning, that's actually functioning in order for our democracy to work. And what's happening right now, it is not working. You have millions of people like ourselves who are independent who cannot participate in that two-party system. And so if that's happening, there's something broken. People are not seeing themselves in either of the party. So we have to lean in. I feel like I have to lean in and say, okay, let's highlight this and figure out how do we fix this? What do we do?
If you're really an independent, though, how can you rule out a whole party? I mean, presumably, I don't know where you live. There might be a candidate who's a Republican who you happen to like more than the Democrat.
Right. I mean, look, right now, where the Republican Party is in this moment, I care about the vulnerable communities out there. Project 2025 is something that they're touting and they're actually ticking off. That's scary to me. That is really, really scary. I represent many of the communities that are under attack. And even if I didn't, there has to be humanity and care for people. And I'm not seeing that. Now, if they were to change and turn that around, maybe.
Okay.
But I think there is a fundamental problem. And I'm talking about, there's a problem on the Democratic side. There's no fight. I think they need to be an opposition party. And I see clearly some flaws in the Republican side that scare me. Scare me.
Karine Jean-Pierre, thank you for coming back.
Thank you so much,
8 o'clock,
Tony.
9 o'clock. The book is Independent. It goes on sale tomorrow. Pick it up wherever you buy your books.